Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads, welcome me back to the show. I was about to say welcome to the show, and I'm thinking, who am I welcoming here? I'm welcoming you, and I'm welcoming me. I've been on a little trip down in Miami, Florida for a week, and it was an amazing, some business, some pleasure. I had the chance to connect with a couple of lovely Floridian listeners while I was there, one of which, Bree, I got to spend some quality time with, and such beautiful reflections. It's such an amazing thing to get the experience to meet some of you guys in person, and I'm sure I'll continue to meet more and more of you. But yeah, it was amazing. And I'm going to talk about some things today. Is that surprising? I'm going to talk about things and whatnots and monsters, actually. Ooh, it's that time of year, right? It is Halloween, or it's the day before Halloween as I record this. And I went to, just before my trip, I went to a One Love Festival, and I had a really interesting sort of experience with monsters. And I thought, how appropriate when I'm back in town and recording again, I will share my story, and we'll see if we can all learn and grow from it. I know I've learned and grown from it. So why don't I actually, before I dive in, lest I forget, I would like to read a review on iTunes. Let's do that first. And this one came in from Strawberry Mama 85. Thank you for your guidance, Brandon. You've been so helpful and full of love, so much so I feel as if we are friends, although we've never met. My number one goal over the past year has been to make my spiritual growth number one in my life. Your podcast helps me maintain my positive vibration in this crazy world that is always happening for us and not to us. Striving for an attitude of gratitude every day. Please find my journal entry from today, which I reflected on with a smile as it gave me inspiration to write a review. First ever review of anything, in parentheses. My fear of the unknown in the spirit world has diminished greatly and is now a great interest of mine. Thank you for being you. Okay, first off, I got to say I just got chills because I hadn't read this review. What's the first thing she says here? My fear of the unknown in the spirit world has greatly diminished, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. So, okay, awesome. As always, the synchronicities just lining up, and my friend Strawberry Mama here playing a role. Notice I said my friend because we are friends even if we haven't met in physical. We are all soul family, right? Anyway, sorry, I got excited. Back to her review. She wasn't done. Let's see, where was I? My fear of the unknown in the spirit world has diminished greatly and is now a great interest of mine. Thank you for being you. Lots of love, light, and blessings always. I feel as if I am dancing upon a sunlight field, like a dandelion seed floating freely. I am floating on the field of unconditional love love and beauty, but I'm unaware as to where the field most needs a seed to be planted, where I am to be most beneficial to all. When will the wind bring me to my new place of growth? That is something of which I do not yet know, and as I float, I become more loving of that unknown now. I will be planted where I am most needed. The direction I'm headed will feel like the wind's strong support and guidance, which I will undoubtedly follow. Oh, I love this journal entry. It's actually even more synchronicity. You talked about dandelions here, the book I'm going to read a little excerpt from. It's called The Big Book of Angel Stories. And I got it on the plane as something to read on the plane coming home by Jenny Smedley. And you guys know I love my stories. And this is one of the stories I just read last night was about dandelions. And this person had a whole experience with dandelions. And so interestingly enough, I just grabbed this book and I'm going to read an excerpt from it. Not that particular story. But anyway, Strawberry Mama, thank you so much for taking the time to review, completing the circle of love. It means the world to me. And certainly, as you can hear, it has me excited. So, yeah. And if for those of you who haven't taken the time to review yet, you can do so on iTunes. Is, as I put it, the holy grail of all things podcasting. Helps us to reach new people and certainly keeps me going, as you can see, gets me excited. And yeah, so do so if you haven't, please. If not, that's okay too. Still love you. And anyway, okay, on to monsters and not having a fear of the unknown, as Strawberry Mama just even referenced. So I was at One Love Festival, which was amazing, by the way, and just an amazing experience. Great time. Saw some of you guys out there. And so I'm hanging out with my son Bradley, and I got him to come to a festival finally. Actually, the second one I've gotten him to come to, and we had an amazing time. And I'm sitting there and actually had done some psychedelics for the first time in quite a while. I decided to try some LSD, which is a powerful third eye opening medicine, if you will. And so having an amazing experience, using the substance, especially with all the amazing energy there and music and art and all those things. And one of the things that's been a theme for me, and you guys have probably heard me talk about it in the past, even with ayahuasca trips or journeys, which has been a while since I've done one of those as well. Maybe coming up on a year or so, probably. But one of the things that's bubbled up for me a lot whenever I've used any sort of plant medicine or psychedelic is, lots of amazing experiences. But also I've had a theme of fears bubbling up, right? And funny enough, my son, Bradley, he, going to the event, he had said that he really wanted to have something spooky happen for some reason, which is kind of weird. I don't know, after watching the movie It, which is really great, by the way, and is all about dealing with fears and some of the things that we're going to talk about and how they sort of appear as a monster in that movie. I recommend it. I'm not big on horror of any kind. It's not my jam. I'm not that into it, but he got me to go and it was really, really good. And I really liked the message. And so anyway, he was saying that he wanted something kind of spooky to happen. And before that, Karis, actually, who's co-hosted a few episodes in the last few weeks, was there and went with us as well. And she had mentioned how she sort of integrates what's going to happen in an event beforehand as part of her sensitive, intuitive abilities. And she said, she messaged me the day before. She goes, I just got some insight. Like there's going to be definitely, dealing with the shadow is going to be part of this experience this weekend. So we get out there. I've taken a psychedelic substance. I've taken some LSD. I'm having a wonderful time sitting there. Okay, so where we're camping, I'm sitting right next to there is a like a public bathroom very close to our tent, and you can actually see it sitting out in front of where our camp setup was. And we're sitting there, and after hours of it's really maybe on the tail end of this trip. And all of a sudden, it like bubbles up out of nowhere for me, the thought of, being a light in the world. And it was like, well, as the brighter your light comes, the more it attracts the darkness. Now, this is just a story, by the way, that I've told or that popped up. That's obviously my subconscious in some way. So as soon as this story popped up, this idea, I was like overcome with like, oh, that same thing I've experienced before, dealing with fears in this sort of, psychedelic state. And I felt fear bubble up, but I was also aware of what was happening. I've seen it now. It's like, that's the one beautiful thing is like, I can see it when it's happening. It's not like I'm lost to, okay, an energy basically is taking me over. Then, of course, from there, I'm feeling way different than I was 5 minutes before, and I'm just sort of processing a little bit. All of a sudden, I realized I have to go to the bathroom. And of course, the bathroom is sitting right there, 100 yards away or so, public restroom. And so I have to go to the bathroom. My stomach starts like kind of churning. I have to go big potty, as my ex-girlfriend would call it to little kids. So I decide, okay, Bradley, I'm going to go over here. I'll be back. I need to go in here. But this fear was still, kind of, it popped up very strongly and quickly. And, with that thought, that I'd had as my sort of influence continues to reach new people, as my light grows brighter on the world stage, which I know it will. I felt it will. I've been shown that it will. Then this idea of, oh, well, you're going to attract, the antithesis of that in some way. And that's kind of can be a scary thought, right? Once again, it's just a story. Doesn't mean it's true, but it's a story that somehow seeped into my subconscious. So anyway, I go to start using the bathroom. Even Bradley could sense, I didn't say anything to him, but he could sense like something was off. He's like, do you want me to come over there with you or something? Or, no. So I go in to the bathroom, and instantly I'm feeling really uneasy going into this like concrete, those park campground type bathrooms that are kind of not the nicest necessarily. But I instantly start feeling elevated, not quite as fearful, that fearful energy, trying to shake it, right? Because there's two little boys that are going in at the same time. One is probably, I'm guessing they're like 5-6 years old, and two very cute little kids. And so I go into one of the stalls. One of the kids goes into the stall right next to me, and sitting there, and the other little boy's like hanging out by the door, right? And all of a sudden, the little boy hanging out by the door says to the one in the stall next to me, he goes, "Oh, I can see your shadow on the wall." And I'm like, okay, here it comes. Like I knew going into the bathroom, like, okay, it's kind of like going to face and deal with this fear. That's, by the way, I didn't mention that, I don't think, a minute ago, but that's really what it felt like when I had to go in there. It was like, okay, let's go deal with this, right? So as soon as this little kid says to the other one, "I can see your shadow on the wall," I'm like, okay, here we go, right? And then he goes, "Oh my gosh, your head looks 3 times its normal size, and the shadow is like, you look like a monster, And so I'm just listening, still kind of resonating with that fearful vibration, seeing, okay, how is this going to play out? And I've had some experiences before that play out, and kind of, especially when you get in that psychedelic state and you're open to so much, it can really, you can have sort of dramatic things play out, and like where your external world is so strongly reflecting what's happening internally. And so I felt that kind of coming on. And so then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear this deep, scary growl, right? I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, and the little kid next to me is like, oh, what was that? Like, oh my gosh, and then it was funny because then he said to his friend, the friend started talking back and forth. He goes, "Well, if it's a monster, the guy next to us will protect us." Of course, I'm in there like, oh, okay. Move through this, work through this, deal with this is somehow just a reflection of that energy, right? But hearing that grumbling was very scary. And now, in retrospect, there was someone else in there that I'd forgotten had walked in there too. And I think it was probably that guy in another stall, like trying to be funny and mess with the kids, or in this case, me, because it was meant for me, right? It was meant for me as much as anyone, right? Well, certainly meant for me, the whole experience. And I'd kind of forgotten he was there. And so it had the effect, right? It doesn't really matter if it came from some beyond place or it just came from a guy in another stall. The effect is what is important, right? So instantly I'm like, okay, and then when it really kind of got a little creepy was when then the kid at the door said, I don't know, but I heard it, and now I see them actually. I see these monsters coming in the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? Okay, this kid's saying he's physically seen something come in, right? So not knowing what's going to happen, I'm like, okay, really just trying to sit with my fear. Now, in retrospect, what I wish I had done, and I did it a little bit, but I wish I'd done it more, is just sent loving energy to the fear, like embraced and sort of brought light to it, right? What I did that for a moment, but then what I did is I got up and I was like, I'm just going to face whatever it is. And I opened the door, went out, and nothing was there. No, there was no monster. There was no nothing. But the experience was powerful, and obviously, like I said, meant for me. It's like, 5 minutes before I walked into the bathroom, this whole fear swept over me. Then I had to go to the bathroom. I knew I was like kind of walking into something. Bradley, my son, even could feel it. He's like, do you want me to come over and stand by the door? It was a weird thing for him to offer. Like, why would he offer that? He could feel the same thing. And so what is this about? Why is this fear sort of bubbled up? Well, like I said, one, and this translates to all of you guys, all of us in different ways, different types of fears. I've told the story of, as I gain more and more notoriety, as my light grows brighter and brighter on this planet, then, somehow that's going to attract the monsters, right? But that's just a story. And if it does attract anything, what I really walked away learning, whatever comes, it's just a part of me. It's just, there are no real monsters that are external. That's really the thing. And so when this comes to fighting, all the unjust things in the world, when it comes to fighting, prejudice, when it comes to fighting, all the racism, all the sexual preference persecution. I mean, there's so many different ways these monsters appear into different people and have really strong impact. And this is just a way that I want to tie together when you look at all these different things that are scary out there, or bad, or evil, right? As if you can just sit there and you can face them with love, right? I kind of drummed up, like, when he said, the guy next to us will protect me. I knew what was going on. And at the same time, I'm dealing with the physical, energy of this fear that I'm resonating. I'm in vibrational alignment with. But then I got up, I went to face it. Not that I had a major choice. I had to get out of there. But, that was sort of like, okay, I'm going to face this. And I also was trying to bring love to it. Now, like I said, I wish I'd sat there even longer and just sat with it. And you talk about doing shadow work or those sort of ideas, because this is a tricky subject, really. It's a really tricky subject, because some people say, really face the shadow, really go into it, dive into it. And I've kind of went back and forth with trying to understand this topic more fully, because there's also whatever you give your attention to, you're practicing the vibrational frequency of, well, you're calling more of it to you. So how do you find the balance of facing your fears versus not calling more of it to, by giving attention to it? And I think when it's coming up, like in my case, it's coming up from somewhere really, subconscious and, all of a sudden present in my consciousness, is to bring love to it, bring awareness to it, see what it is, understand what it is. And if you can know that there's really no monster outside of you, that's the big thing. That's really, I came away with that. It's like all that is something that I'm manifesting. In this case, I'm manifesting these characters that played these perfect roles, from the little boys to the guy who growled next to us, or maybe the growl came from elsewhere. I don't know. Nonetheless, I manifested it, right? It came from my energy, from my fear. And when you understand that you have the power to bring love to it, and when you know it's just a part of you, it sort of makes it a lot less scary if you have the idea and the awareness that there is no evil entity out there or thing that can get you that is separate from you. And what I'd like to do actually is play a clip from Abraham talking about the truth about evil entities. I found it on the Dream Unity 333 YouTube page, and Abraham goes into this a little bit more, and then we'll talk about it. Take a listen.
Wow. Oh boy. Thank you. I have a couple questions, maybe 3.
We only have one answer, so get ready.
This first question goes back a while. It's been something I've been carrying around since the 70s when I was a Ouija board fanatic.
We really don't have time for that one. Skip to the next one.
Okay.
If it's all right.
Well, I have a friend who has a friend who has been having problems with uninvited, I'll say spiritual attachments that have been causing him a great deal of pain and discomfort. And I understand he had been asking for help to rid himself of these spirits, I guess. And I guess it was Friday before coming on board, I decided to sit and do a meditation. It was not my intention to meditate upon this particular person. It just started to happen. I was sitting and was told to stand, and when I stood, suddenly he came into my mind's eye, and then I just proceeded. I had this feeling of wanting to hug him, and then as I hugged him, I took my arms from the back of his head and down his back, and it was like I was shaving his back of tentacles that were just falling away from him. I did that, and then I had this feeling to just what I do in meditation sometimes is just cover myself in like a gold healing liquid, and I was massaging him in and sort of saying, well, this really isn't the end. I hope it helped, but it's like little roots that still remain that he himself has to rid himself of. After coming out of this meditation, I was totally just so emotional and crying and praying that this indeed was something that I helped him in some way to free him of his pain that he was having. And I was getting all sorts of messages. Yes, it did. You did do good. It's now his time to also do. But then, I get confused thinking, now, did I really help in some way, or is it just the good old ego twirling in because you want to help and you want to do?
Well, anytime you are holding someone else as your object of attention while you are anticipating good things for them or improved things for them, you can tell by the way you feel. In other words, if your vision makes you feel joyful, then you are of value to them. If your vision makes you afraid or makes you feel worried, then rather than you uplifting them, your vision of them has lowered you on your vibrational scale. And we can tell by the exhaustion that you felt once it was finished that you had a sort of mix of energy going on. And first of all, we want to say to you that there's so much we want to say to you. At the end of where you have come to in your presentation to us, we want to say to you that there is no way that knowing what you know and being who you are and hanging out on the emotional scale where you really do and connecting with who you really are on such a regular basis that you would need to worry about connecting with anything that would be detrimental to you. But we wanted to begin, as you began speaking to us just now, when you said you have a friend of a friend of a friend who has some uninvited frivolous, non-physical, maybe even belligerent energies messing around. We wanted to say to you, there is no such thing as uninvited anything. But there is such a thing as a confusion about how one is inviting. In other words, you invite through your awareness to things. You invite through your attention to things. And every subject is really two subjects, what is wanted and lack of it. And so we want to clear something up because we can feel it pulsing around the room here a bit. And we want to say to you that there is only a stream of well-being. You never walk into a room and look for a dark switch. You just don't look around for that switch that you flip that floods inky, misty darkness into the room that covers up the light. You never worry when you open the dark closet that the darkness will sweep in and make the room you're standing in darker. In other words, there is a light switch or a resistor that can resist the light, but there is not a source of darkness. Any more than that there is a source of sickness or a source of evil, there is only a not allowing the light that is there to shine, not allowing the well-being that is there to shine, you see. And so what happens when people hook up with something that is less than wanted, whether it's a sickness or whether it's an interaction with something frivolous as you are describing, what it is a spin-off of man's conscious mind. And what we mean by that is every thought that has ever been thought still exists. When you think a thought, that thought begins to think, in that it begins to offer a pulsing vibration, and law of attraction manages all of those thoughts. And so there are rivers and streams of thoughts. And when you think about Esther, when she thinks back about Sunday school, if you ask her what she learned in Sunday school as a little one, she will tell you that she learned about the devil and she learned to hate him so. In other words, that was the thing that she learned most about. She does not remember now. She's not sure if that's the only thing they talked about or if it was just the most exciting thing. So it's the thing that she remembers. But that's what she came away from remembering. In other words, it's what's talked about and has been from pulpit after pulpit after pulpit for generation after generation after generation. So it's in the consciousness. And people who want to be happy beings, all of you innately do, who look out into your world and you see things that you like and you say, I would vote for more of that, I would embrace that, I would support that with my time and energy and money. And they look over and they see things that they do not want and they say, we've got to do away with that. Do not realize that in this universe that is based upon attraction, there is no such thing as exclusion. You cannot push anything away, because in your trying to exclude it, you are actually activated the vibration of it, so you are including it. So when you look at things wanted and say yes to it, you include it in your vibration. When you look at things not wanted and you shout no at it, you include it in your vibration. So there have been so many billions of people for eons looking at things not wanted and pushing against them, and there is a hefty stream of consciousness out there that you can tap into. And anytime you get vibrationally in the vicinity, it's not so different than your radio signals. As Jerry and Esther were driving up from Orlando, Esther kept using the scan button on the radio in their Yukon, waiting to find something that was interesting. She would listen for a while and then she would drive out of the range of it. And then she would push the scan button again, reaching for another signal as she went from community to community. And so the same sort of thing is true. When you get your tuner set at a certain place, then you have access to anything that is in your vicinity that is on a similar wavelength. And so you cannot ask the universe to be eradicated of all of the vibrations that don't please you. People tend to want to do that. We see this place as a well-stocked kitchen with every ingredient imaginable. And you say, well, I would like to make this lovely pie. I want to make an apple pie. And we say, good, the ingredients are there for you. And you say, yes, but there are also ingredients that I do not want in my pie. There is Tabasco sauce. I do not want this in my pie. Please do not put Tabasco sauce in my pie. Take it away from the kitchen. And we say, just don't put it in your pie. And you say, but it might get in my pie. And we say, not if you do not put it there. And you say, but it's in the kitchen. It might get in my pie. And we say, not unless you put it in your pie. And you say, but I would feel ever so much better if you would just remove it altogether from the kitchen. Because if you would remove it from the kitchen, then I know for sure that it could not get in my pie. And we say, it cannot get in your pie unless you put it in your pie. And you say, but others have it in their pie. And I know some of them did not want it in their pie either. And that, yeah, it is in their pie. And we say, just don't put it in your pie. And you say, but it might get in my pie. And then you say, oh, look, it's in my pie. And we say your attention to anything is what puts it in your pie, you see. And so attention to a subject like this, in other words, I have a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who has this experience. And we say, stop telling the story. In other words, it just puts it in your pie. And then you feel obligated to do something about it. And do you know that when you wish well for another, you are holding them in the position that you want them to be in, you connect with source energy and your thoughts about them are of value. But unless they are in the vibrational place where they can, in other words, anytime someone is sick, They want wellness in an exaggerated way. And the cells of their body are asking for the wellness. Step one has taken place, and source energy is answering. Every cellular request is being answered. But that person that is beating the drum of, I'm sick, the person that's beating the drum of the test, that's beating the drums of all of the worrisome thought, the person that's looking and finding the shadows that is called disease, that person is not holding themselves in the place of allowing the well-being that the cells of their body are asking for. And so let's say a healer enters the picture, and the healer says, I will put my hands on you, and I will summon the great well-being from the great beyond, and I will direct it toward your body. And we say, they don't need somebody else to direct well-being toward their body. Their desire is doing all of the summoning that is ever necessary. But you can help them immensely in your well wishes. The only help that you or Abraham or anyone can offer to anyone is helping them to soften their resistance so that they can begin, by the power of our influence, to allow the well-being that they are asking for, you see. We want you to know that there is not an evil stream. There are not even frivolous beings who have access to any of you if it is not for your attention to them. And like cancer that you do not want, or like a car accident that you do not want, or like anything that you do not want, attention to a subject is an activating of a vibration. An activating of a vibration is an asking for this thing you do not want, you see. So what we would say to someone who says, even in their fear, oh, I have some attachment of some creepy thing that is going on. Jerry Nestor had a dear friend who called them icky beings. They're icky beings that are after me. Turned out the way she invited them was she had someone that she was trying to draw to her who didn't want to come. So she went to a bookstore and looked in the witchcraft section for something that she could use to make this person do something that he did not want to do, that she wanted him to do. And then she said, I've never done anything to attract anything like this to me. And we said, you were looking for means of control and of control over another, and you found vibrational alignment with thought forms. First there is a thought, the longer you think it, then it takes form. That's all it is. And so when you understand that there is nothing for you to guard against. So let's say that we are visiting with this friend of a friend of a friend, and this friend is feeling uncomfortable about something that has come about. How is this manifesting? Are they using a Ouija board or something? How is it manifesting?
I'm not really sure. I know that there was a time when he was involved with drugs and alcohol, or drugs, and I don't know if it all came about in that way.
Well, all drugs and alcohol do is put you in a place of least resistance or less resistance, so that whatever vibration you've got going is easier for you to realize. But that in and of itself would not. It is inconsequential what the invitational door is. But what we're wanting to say to all of you is that if we were visiting with someone who was having this experience, we would laugh and we would say, well, all it is thought form that has come by vibrational invitation. And you can tell by the way you feel when you are having thoughts, whether you're a vibrational match to something not wanted, or whether you're a vibrational match to something wanted. Mm-hmm. And if you want to play this out to the furthest of extent, you will discover that even in their irritation, these thought forms that feel very vivid and real, just like nightmares, they have no way of interacting with you in any meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And so as you just talk it down, like anything unwanted, it will begin to be less and less and less until it will be gone. We would not for a moment say, oh, let me see if I can work on that. Oh, let me see if I have any incantations or any witch's brew or anything that I can utilize or any mantra. We would not give it the time of day, because it does not deserve the time of day. Because what deserves the time of day, what deserves attention, is the well-being that is in this moment sort of latent within this person's experience. Mm-hmm.
So what a great clip, right? It's just really driving home what I was talking about. There is no dark switch. There is no such thing as uninvited anything. And this goes against any sort of evil, anything that you can think of. It's, as she put it here, every subject is two things: what is wanted and the lack of it. There's only a stream of well-being. There's not a dark switch. There's a light switch or a resistor to light. And, what she's saying, and this is what I try and get, this is just another way to look at this subject of all the evils in the world, or all the things that are wrong and the unjust things that are happening out there. This is just another way to look at it as that monster, right? And that you can't exclude anything away. Same way as me sitting there. It's like, what's the best thing that I can do is drum up love and face it with love. And that is what dissipates it, right? By bringing the light of consciousness to it. And I love, the whole analogy of it's a well-stocked kitchen with every ingredient. If you keep trying to put Tabasco in your pie, you're going to get a pie that probably doesn't taste very good. And if you can understand, and this is a really good one, for me, especially with that, the fear that's bubbled up for me, there's nothing to guard against. It's just thought form that came from vibrational invitation. That's exactly what happened to me, right? She says it's just thought form that came from vibrational invitation. So if you can acknowledge that vibration, maybe it's coming up, bubbling up from unconscious. This is sort of maybe the idea of shadow work and not resisting it or not running from it. Like, okay, it bubbled up. Now, all spiritual practice is the art of shifting perspectives, right? So you understand this is just a thought form that came up from vibrational invitation. Yes, it's there. Yes, it's a shadow that exists in you, in your subconscious. It's coming up for clarification, for healing. But by understanding that's all it is. It's not this entity that's coming to get you. You're haunting yourself, right? And what she talks about here too is, being careful not to ritualize it and giving it the time of day, doing these great, all these, what she talked about is, I can't remember. It might've been in another clip that I listened to, before this one. She talked about I would, instead of ritualizing and doing all these exorcisms and things, I'd sort of laugh about it. I'd create lightheartedness about it. I would bring levity and light to it, because the more you're giving that energy, the more you're giving it power. And when you understand, what a powerful thing to understand. It's just a thought form that came from vibrational invitation. These are, there is nothing that can ultimately, there's nothing to guard against. It's all just you. And a great example of that in a good way, right? So speaking of this book that I said I wanted to read from, it's a very short little story from this book. And, if you guys ever check out the book, it's just like, Jackie's story, Alice's story, Bob's story. It's just different people's story of having sort of spiritual experiences or angelic type encounters, right? Some, on the other side, most, in 3D, and everything in between. But this one is Susan's story, and she says, I'm surrounded by a beautiful violet light, and there's a being inside the light. I can't see any details, but I feel loved and peaceful and serene. I'm going into the light, and I can hear the being's voice. It's gentle, tinkling, sort of how I'd expect a benevolent alien to sound, like silver bells. The being is welcoming me back into spirit and inviting me to review the events of my previous life. Okay, so in this case, she was like doing a past life regression or something. I'm encouraged to comment and state my feelings. My body is vaporized and I feel incredibly light. I'm almost floating, and as I'm drawn into conversation with the being, I'm also gradually becoming one with it. It's very strange, this feeling of having a conversation with myself. And after a few moments, it's like we're speaking with one voice, not even out loud. I think it's just thought forms being exchanged. So anyway, it goes on. I just wanted to read that part of it because this is an example of it's always another part of you, So when you interact with any of these beings, in this case, it was a very light, positive experience. Same sort of thing. If you're any dark entity is a thought form vibration that bringing love to it it's like turning the light switch on, right? And that's my point with all these other issues out there, all the evils in the world, all the unjust things. By bringing love to it, it's like so cliche, but it's my favorite quote for a reason. Love is the answer. Now, what was the question? Because what does it do? It brings the light on. It brings the light on. And you understand that any of this, if evil entity or evil doer, or evil thing that's happening in our world, right? It's just from a part of source that is cut off. It's not in the stream of well-being. It's resistant to the light, and it's a manifestation of that resistance to light. So what does it need most of all? Light. So if you're anything but light to it, it's adding to it, and you're co-creating it, is my whole point that I've been, continually making when we address these sorts of things, these monsters. And this is another way to look at monsters here on Hallows Eve. And we're actually going to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. We're going to have the lovely Colby Psychic Rebel on the show to talk to a couple listeners, deceased loved ones, because she's a psychic medium, and most of the time she's been on about once a month for the last few months. It's been just regular readings for people, but in the spirit of Halloween, we're going to discuss dark entities. So we're going to dive a little further down this path tomorrow and hear what her thoughts are on it as someone who communicates with spirit, and then get her insight, and then she's going to actually connect with some listeners' lost loved ones, or not really lost in 3D, never truly lost. And that's a beautiful thing to know and understand. We only take vacations from each other. We never lose anyone or anything. And just like it's time for me to wrap up today's show, you will not lose me. I shall be back. And in the meantime, I have a song that seems appropriate to leave you guys with. It's a good one. Many of you probably heard. It's called Drive by Incubus. And until next time, hope you steer your ship well, journey well, love you all. See you tomorrow. Also, before we cue up today's song, I wanted to remind you about the game with the universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time. And if you go to positivehead.com/universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to spark the curiosity of friends and family by having them choose a number, so they'll hopefully go and check out their number as well, which I greatly appreciate because it helps us to spread the word about the podcast. Once again, the address is positivehead.com/universe. And as a quick reminder, if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them almost every day, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I cannot stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so. I have my favorite, the appleberry shake, at least 5 times a week. Once again, to learn more about the Purium transformation, go to positivehead.com/transformation. Or if you want to keep it simple and just try out my favorite, the appleberry shake, you can go straight over to ishoppurium.com and be sure to use code positivehead for 25% off. I'll spell that for you. It's ishoppurium.com. And be sure to use your Positive Head 25% coupon code.
Sometimes I feel the fear of uncertainty stinging clear, and I can't help but ask myself how much I let the fear had to waver